Right now, the My Hero Academia manga continues to delve further and further into some pretty interesting things. And with this being the case, we were lucky enough to receive a rematch of sorts between Deku and the villain, Muscular. Now, a number of months have at this point passed since their initial encounter, and in this time, Deku's growth has been absolutely exponential. So much so that if he wasn't attempting to gain information on Shigaraki and All For One, or dissuade the guy from villainy and test out his quirks, I'm willing to bet that fight would have been over a whole lot sooner. Deku was way too sure that there wouldn't be any more casualties. Our main character is finally a badass. But throughout this fight, we were able to observe a new quirk entirely, one that we received no forewarning about, smokescreen. What is now the confirmed quirk of the sixth possessor of One For All, N. And so with such an impromptu addition, we would like to take the time out to further explore its potential use and capabilities going forwards. Now, first of all, this was a quirk Bakugo considered to be unremarkable, something that has now been further corroborated by the original possessor himself. This quirk by its lonesome isn't all too spectacular, but when used in conjunction with his other abilities may serve Deku well indeed. Now, something we have to consider is the sort of upgrade inherently provided to these quirks thanks to One For All stockpiling ability, because with it, the amount of smoke Deku is able to emit is absurd. I mean, it's more than enough to thoroughly cover several city blocks. And sure, Deku admittedly went a bit overboard in his emissions, but that's not to say that he's done so to its maximum capability, which to me is absolutely absurd. And in conjunction with his other quirks, that's the ability to shift just about any and all environments in his favor. Now, the overwhelming majority of combatants rely on sight-based detection, and so this will be pretty hard to deal with considering Deku now possesses danger sense, which would serve to negate such a disadvantage in his case. And admittedly, for as cool as this may be, it is to me a very solitary benefit. This isn't the sort of thing that would necessarily mesh well with most potential allies, which certainly works well with the current solitary situation of Deku and his pursuits. But as for how it will be able to perform later on with the eventual assistance of others is a question I still have. Now, the sort of metamorphosis provided to a quirk via One For All, as we've mentioned, is majorly in regards to scale as opposed to anything else. It's not as dynamic as your general quirk evolution. We've established his ability covers a whole lot of terrain, but with further regulation, I wonder if he'd be able to more precisely designate the density of his smoke. If so, this could justify the further use of his mask. As for others, it would lessen breathability while he remains uninhibited. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not insinuating any sort of suffocation technique, as that's not exactly a very heroic depiction. However, when it comes to combat, hitting hard is important. Being able to defend against hard hits is important. Being able to outright avoid and evade hard hits is important as well. However, just about each and every facet of such a physical confrontation depends on stamina. If you can diminish an adversary's ability to breathe while pressuring them all the same, the likelihood of them emerging victorious is severely diminished. Now, based on N's outwardly appearance alone, I would assume that he likely used this quirk in a very stealthy manner, depending on hit and run tactics as opposed to outright assault. Not sure if that's Deku's style exactly, but at the very least, simply having the option is a major addition for sure. Fighting Deku out in the open is difficult because of his absurd verticality and maneuverability. But that does not necessarily mean doing so within an enclosure would be any better. Now, this next application may not be the coolest thing ever, but at the very least, it's something Deku wasn't able to do previously. So yeah, skywriting. In the event that tech-based communications cease, Deku could rise above and write out an urgent message in the air. And with the current situation of the country, a lack of communications isn't too hard to imagine. A concept only furthered by the existence of the yet unnamed female villain who played a major role in the mass release of several Tartarus inmates via her unknown quirk capable of disabling the prison's electrical defenses. And if that's too complicated, he could quite simply just send up a flare. But on the note of those liberated from Tartarus, it is important to consider how this quirk will fare against the likes of Shigaraki and All For One. And unfortunately, I can't say that it's all that great. These two have the ability to sense Deku across great distances and to an extent, he them. But of course, seeing as Shigaraki is currently inactive and slumbering, Deku cannot pinpoint his location just yet. And I'd imagine All For One is far too shrewd to be detected so easily despite his ongoing activity. There's also the fact that his current quirk is a duplicate of the original, so maybe the connection isn't too strong. Now, with how suddenly this quirk entered the fray, I can't help but question when the next will come about. And at that, there's no clear answer to such a thing because it's truly up to the whim of Horikoshi and how intense our focus on Deku stands to be in the future. However, at this point, I believe we may assume that he is now at the very least aware of what the quirks of the second and third users are. Because even if they were to refuse him or something of the sort, the others could easily just divulge said information in their stead. And so we should be able to avoid Deku being a complete novice with his unseen quirks. Deku's smokescreen quirk is just as the name implies. Unlike what we would label to be smoke manipulation, once emitted, Deku's smoke isn't something he can control or take back. Because of this, good decision making is imperative in the case of this quirk, as there is little to no room for error. With the levels of air pressure produced by Deku's movements and attacks, smokescreen may be a bit counterintuitive, as he would either clear an entire area with a single jaunt, or straight up expose his own position. With all this being said, smokescreen may not be a powerhouse quirk or anything like that, but it is certainly far from useless. And seeing as the quirks of the second and third possessors yet remain a mystery to us still, there is still the chance it will receive that sort of thing elsewhere. I'm curious how you all feel about this quirk and how it compares to the rest for you. My own personal ranking would be Danger Sense up first, Black Whip as a close second, Smokescreen in third, and Float in fourth. And that's no disrespect to Float, it's really useful and works well with all the others in one way or another. But it's just not the most dazzling thing in the world. But hey, there's plenty left to see and uncover in the case of Deku's many quirks and My Hero Academia in general. So hopefully, you'll consider joining the Plot Army by subscribing to Plot Armor with notifications on. Now to level with you guys, following the whole false copyright debacle, YouTube has, as expected, suppressed the outreach of our videos a bit, so please, if you enjoy the content, drop a like, leave a comment, share it where you can. Every little bit helps, we really appreciate it. We recently passed 3,000 followers on Instagram, which is pretty crazy considering we were just looking at a few hundred only last month. So thank you to everyone who's been showing us love even over there, we really appreciate it. But yeah, to stay up to date on all the anime and manga news, memes, and information you care about, go ahead and follow us at PlotArmorYT on Twitter and Instagram. Because when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.